the Trump paradox regarding Venezuela. Today we are going to discuss.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
Well, today we are going to focus our attention on how Trump is perceived for, for Venezuelans. And many people are surprised when I give the results of the statistics, the analysis, from the polls that I have and the numbers that I manage. And the result is that around 70% of Venezuelans, both within the country and abroad, actually like Trump. Really, he's very popular amongst Venezuelans. If Venezuela was a US state, it would be a ruby red state like Mississippi, Alabama, Indiana, a state like that. Now, there is like a 30-ish% of people who actually, Venezuelans, they really hate Trump. And that's, you have to call for it. They have, quote unquote, TDS. Now, the issue with Trump is that, and you know also how Trump it is, the best in the world, the biggest in the world, you know how he likes to show off and exaggerate. He said 92% of Venezuelans love me. Yeah, yeah, and no, it's not 92. He's, overselling. It's 66, 7%. That's kind of the number. And also, I can tell you that Democrats are very unpopular amongst Venezuelans. They cannot even break the 25% of support and popularity, something like that, right now, according to the polls. So, on that regard, and many people are very surprised, especially people that I talk on the streets, especially in Europe, that they thought that we Venezuelans hate Trump. And well, first, I'm agnostic to Trump. I neither like him or hate him. Some things that I like, I think is funny. I can say that it's entertaining, but for the rest, I don't love them, but I don't hate them. Well, and people, these people, especially here in Europe, they are surprised that that they tell him, yeah, but why he wants to deport you and yada yada yada. But also they don't understand the complex political situation within Venezuela. So sometimes I explain it, sometimes I don't. So let's try to figure it out here. Now, the paradox, it's a couple of paradox because when Trump talks about Venezuela, he's very first harsh, first with Maduro and that, but also against the Venezuelan migrants and things like that. But let's first go play by play the attitude of Trump towards Venezuela. First, Trump, he's a boomer, and he has a lot of ties with Florida, and actually he lives in Florida. So Trump saw the time when Venezuela was rich, prosperous, the richest country in Latin America, yada yada yada, the oil production and yada yada. So Trump has, he remembers how Venezuela was when it was a prosperous country before it was artificially when before the Venezuelan economy was artificially destroyed and now is poised to make a comeback. Okay, and that's the first thing. Also, Trump has a lot of ties with Venezuelan people, especially and also Don Jr. You know that Trump has properties on Doral, Florida, a golf course, and I believe a hotel, a resort, something like that. Well, so he has a bunch of ties. In case you don't know, Doral, Florida is a city where half of the population they are Venezuelans. They are all Venezuelan descendants. So half of that population is in even a former mayor of Doral was actually a born and raised Venezuelan that then became an American citizen. Kind of like Mandami, but on reverse. A right wing Mandami, something like that. Okay. And also, Trump used to be the owner, the Trump organization was the owner of the Miss Universe. And Venezuela is very famous for the beauty pageants, actually, the most successful nation regarding beauty pageants and things like that. So, Trump knows very well Venezuelan people, the Venezuelan culture, the Venezuelan beauty queens. Things like that. So, Trump has a soft spot for Venezuela. And on his first term as president, Trump actually did uh, Trump actually did he was very supportive to Venezuela. He was very hawkish with Maduro, but very understanding with Venezuelan people. And even at the end of his first administration, he signed like a deferred action for the deportation of the Venezuelans that were, fleeing the country under the draconian economic policies that destroyed the country. Yeah. Meanwhile, he was very, very hawkish against Maduro. And remember, the overwhelming majority of Venezuelans disapprove Maduro, and that's an understatement. Remember that almost a third of the Venezuelan population lives abroad. From the 30 million Venezuelans, 8, give or take, live abroad. So it was a great match for the Venezuelan, most of the Venezuelan people, either someone who helps on the migration side and also someone who is combating the reason why they left their country on the first place. And plus, Trump has this affinity to both, the Venezuelan people in South Florida and also to South Florida alone, where the situation of both Cuba and Venezuela are very political driven, for politics in Florida and the politicians over there. Okay, so that's something that moves a little. It can change the outcome of a local election within Florida. Okay, now, on his second term, Trump has been more hawkish. He is the most hawkish as you can be against Maduro on his second term, and also appointing Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State and also National Security Advisor. Rubio is the most hawkish politician against Maduro and against the Chavismo in the world from outside of Venezuela. So on that regard, he sent them a clear message that we are coming from you. That's basically the message that Trump sends to send to the, both the Venezuelan de facto government and also the Venezuelan population. However, he also started to badmouthing the Venezuelan people for the migration in the United States, mostly because this thing of Tren de Aragua, that this criminal gang that is committing crimes in the US and actually other countries. And first, the situation of the TDA was manufactured by all of this crisis. The TDA doesn't represent the Venezuelan people. Actually, some of the TDA people are from other countries like Colombia and Peru and places like that. So it's a multinational organization, if you want to call it. So it doesn't represent the Venezuelan people. And statistically, the Venezuelans are way less likely to commit a crime in the host countries like Chile, like Colombia, and of course the United States, way less likely to commit a crime compared to the local population. And this Tren de Aragua they are just hiccups. And most Venezuelans actually hate Tren de Aragua and they want it arrested, deported, whatever, do whatever they want with them. They don't represent, and I say this as a Venezuelan, they don't represent me and most of my people and the people that I know. Most Venezuelans that me and myself and the people that I know are professionals, overachievers, and I'm sorry to toot my own horn here, but yeah, I can tell you, none of my colleagues, peers, acquaintances, yada yada yada, are TDA members. I can say that as much. So and also starting the second administration, Trump appointed this guy, Rick Grenell, as the special envoy to Venezuela and did some deals, usually for exchanging migrants, expel illegal migrants, Venezuelan illegal migrants, especially the TDA members, go back to the Venezuela and did some oil deals at first. So this paradox of being very, kind of pleasant with Maduro and also treating very draconianly the Venezuelan people, especially in the United States, is a paradox and inconsistency that many people got strange and Venezuelans were very furious about it and also felt betrayed, both for Trump and for Marco Rubio. But but that situation did a 180. First, Trump started, reducing the oil concessions on the licenses for Chevron, then designated both TDA, Tren de Aragua, and Cartel of the Suns, quote unquote, the cartel of the Venezuelan de facto government, as terrorist organizations. Then rose the bounty, Pambondi, the Trump's AG, to 50 million. That's double the Saddam that got the Saddam, that Bin Laden, so that for the head of Maduro. And also several members of the de facto government in Venezuela have bounties on their head. And since August, we have this military buildup in the Caribbean that is poised to take over Maduro, but we don't know what's going to happen. We are right now sitting on the edge of our seats in order to see what is going to happen. But still, today, Trump's popularity amongst Venezuelans remain. Trump is very popular amongst Venezuelan people. On the very least, two-thirds of Venezuelans actually like Trump, and roughly 30% really hate Trump. Of course, there are undecided, like 10% maybe today like Trump, and the next day like the Democrats, or they are agnostic and things like that. And also since he changes his position a lot, goes back and forth, 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 taco, taco. You know how Trump it is, it drives you crazy with everything, tariffs, sanctions, and foreign affairs, things like that. In Venezuela is no exception. So Venezuelans are losing their minds, and something that you can see on Venezuelan Twitter, Venezuelan X, I'm sorry, Elon, uh, regarding they are losing their mind of, can you fucking decide what you're gonna do, Trump? That's basically the mindset of Venezuela. So pardon my French. So that's the review on the paradox on Trump and Venezuelan people. It's very liked, but some people really hate him, have TDS, and these inconsistencies in these incongruencies that sometimes Trump makes about Venezuela, Venezuelan people, the Venezuelan government, the Venezuelan opposition, yada, 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 yada. Marco Rubio, and all that jazz generates a lot of confusion on the communication regarding Venezuela. So, thank you again. We will see each other on the next video.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.